Humphrey, the Chief Operating Officer for TreasuryJobs.com. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, Accounts Payable Automation You Can't Afford to Get Left Behind. I would like to thank our webinar partner, Use, whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible today. Before I delve into the content, I'm going to offer a few quick words about TreasuryJobs.com, cover a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to review our learning objectives for our time together today, as they represent the components of our value proposition to you in sharing your valuable time with us. Accounts Payable has been undergoing a paradigm shift from a back office afterthought to a core strategic business function. Today, you're going to learn why your company can't afford to get left behind in the arena of accounts payable automation. Today, I will discuss the ROI you can achieve from automating your accounts payable processes and how to develop an effective business case for investing in AP automation at your company. You will also discover how companies of all sizes are realizing lower invoice processing costs, mitigating payments risk, and improving supplier relationships through AP automation. A few quick words about TreasuryJobs.com. TreasuryJobs.com connects Treasury talent with the right opportunities and endeavors to be a trusted career resource for Treasury professionals. Some of the largest companies in the world, over 300 of the Fortune 1000, already leverage TreasuryJobs.com. We post only Treasury jobs. We offer Treasury certification resources. We offer complimentary webinars like the one today. We offer a career blog which offers actionable advice to fuel Treasury career success. And yes, stay tuned for even more. A Treasury certification is currently in the works. Few housekeeping items. The slides are already available under the handouts area in your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll send you links via email to the presentation and recording of the webinar over the next 24 hours. For CTP credits, you'll have to answer all the following questions and remain for the duration of the webinar. We want to hear from you, so please ask your questions in the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel. Finally, we appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for our valuable time. Our learning objectives for today: we'd like you to be able to calculate the potential cost savings of AP automation for your company, to be able to define the benefits of improved productivity across the enterprise attributable to AP automation at your company, and how to construct and communicate an effective business case for AP automation at your company. A few other learning objectives that I have for all the webinars in which I'm the featured speaker. Number one, I want you to smile. Yes, AP automation can be fun. It's actually very exciting as this paradigm shift is going on in this industry. And second of all, but probably most importantly, is I want you to take an action. So whether that's sending me a LinkedIn invitation, talking to a colleague, printing out a few of the slides of the presentation, because that's really the value that this webinar is going to offer you from my perspective, is to get you to take an action. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how to transform AP at your company and execute AP automation. However, I'm going to give you the baseline for what best practices look like, what you might want to consider in terms of bringing AP automation to your company, and help you ask the right questions and make the right connections in order to execute an AP automation project. So what's our agenda? How are we going to accomplish our objectives? We're going to cover why accounts payable matters, and I think this is important in making that business case, especially if you need to win that approval from the CFO. Imagine walking into the CFO's office and saying, my most important strategic objective of this year is AP automation. Now, as much as I love AP, my CFO probably would have kicked me out of the office. Well, now he's going to make me a seat, and he's going to welcome me when I talk about accounts payable, because the business case that we're going to be able to offer the CFO is going to blow his doors off. Second of all, we're going to talk about common accounts payable pain points, and then we'll talk about how automation often offers the cure for AP headaches, and then we'll talk about the strategic outcomes of AP automation and how to define that ROI, which is obviously a key component of that business case that we're going to have to make, and we're going to be able to sell that business case as well. And in terms of that buy-in for the business case, we need to understand there's two distinct audiences there. One is those who are going to have to approve the investment in resources in terms of people and funds, but secondly, and probably most importantly, all of those who are going to be impacted as we implement an AP automation project and most likely an AP automation solution. So we need to get buy-in from all those that are going to be impacted. How are they going to help us execute? How are they going to be able to help us unlock the strategic value of accounts payable at our company? And then I'll offer some closing thoughts and resources. I think resources are tremendously important. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how to do everything, but I'm going to be able to get you to the right resources, the right questions, and the right people. So I encourage you to take a look at those resources as well. So why accounts payable? Why now? Just another point of context here. I've been speaking in the arena of treasury for over 10 years, and I have never really spoken on accounts payable. Over the previous 9 years to the past 12 months, I've probably spoken on AP automation 12 times in the last year. So it's an exciting area. And so here's some of the reasons why this is becoming more exciting and why you need to pay attention. Real-time data for better cash management has become available, and it's a top priorities for CFOs. Especially if you're publicly traded companies, your investors are looking at the deployment of cash. And accounts payable is just a place where strategic gold lies. Secondly, payments fraud is still rampant. We'll talk about some recent results from the AFP Fraud and Control Survey, but payments fraud is still rampant, so this needs our attention. Manual paper-based processes consume time, space, and money, and now that we have the visibility into the cost of these manual paper-based processes, we're able to make that assessment and see why it just doesn't make sense anymore to put up with manual paper-based processes. And companies of all sizes are realizing the strategic value of improving supplier relationships. So in the past, in Treasury, we've always focused on getting paid. Well, the supplier relationships are just as important, if not more important, than our customer relationships. So companies are realizing how the accounts payable process can help build and strengthen these strategic relationships with suppliers. And then possibly the most important is the right technology is affordable to any business size. And what does that mean? That means it's cost effective, a very solid ROI. There's no reason for a company of any size to believe that they can't afford to offer a best-in-class accounts payable function to their company. And also, companies are changing, so you're growing or changing industries. So AP automation helps us grow into these changing business conditions. So the strategic value of cash, again, I want to dig in on a few of these points. So we look at the right side. So we're looking at, and this is where we're going to focus today, and this is where Treasury really hasn't focused enough. So what are the costs involved in ordering products, receiving products, processing, invoicing, and just paying for products? So those four circles there, there's huge amounts of value there in terms of cost savings and impacting supplier relationships and also improving working capital optimization. So it's amazing to me how much is really there. And as we dive deeper and deeper into the weeds, the more gold we uncover. So it's almost like we're going around in the field and we have a metal detector and there's money. So as we start to improve our technology, and that metal detector just beeps. It beeps all the time. You move it, beep. So there's tremendous opportunity there. And obviously, it's all one cycle. So we obviously have to pay attention to the AR side of the house, but it all needs to fit together. We need to optimize that cash deployment and that velocity of funds. So a few specific examples on the strategic value of cash. One of the things that companies haven't paid enough attention to is the value in negotiating and taking discounts. Some companies' accounts payable processes are such that they're not even able to take discounts. So if someone's offered a 110 net 30, you have to be able to process an invoice within 30 days. So we need to have visibility into the discounts that we have. First of all, a lot of companies don't even have visibility into the discounts that they're offered. Are they taking them? Are they making an informed decision? Is there room to negotiate these discounts? Do we need to negotiate these discounts? Do we need to engage our procurement folks and tell them we need to negotiate these discounts? These can be tremendously valuable to our company. So just some common terms. So let's just say we're going to do an example on 110 net 30. You can take a look at the other terms on the slide, and happy to have a conversation with you afterwards if you want more detail. But let's look at 110 net 30. What does that mean? You receive a 1% discount on the invoice amount if the payment is received by the supplier within 30 days. So So how does that work? What's the effective interest rate on that? So you use your formula, discount percentage divided by 1 minus the discount percentage times 360 times the payment days, discounted days. So in this case, we're 0.01, 0.99, that's 1%, and then 360 days, and then we're looking at paying 20 days sooner. So what that effective interest rate? 18.1%. So what does that mean? That means we should take this discount unless our cost of borrowing is 18.1% or more. I hope that's not the case for your company, but you need to look at that opportunity cost of capital. So if your opportunity cost of cash is less than 18.1%, I hope it's 4%, 5%. Just think about that. Just think about the cost of not taking that discount. So you want to make sure almost always it makes sense to take discounts. There's value in accurately forecasting cash flows. Again, working capital optimization. So especially if you're a net borrower, if you borrow money when you don't need to for 5 days, 10 days, it's going to cost you, but it's also going to strain your bank relationships. And then there's also value in leveraging electronic payments we'll talk about later. So that value. So we also need to look at how we're making those payments, credit card, cash, electronic payments. So if we're using checks instead of wires and ACHs, that can be a huge cost to our company that we shouldn't be incurring. So if you look at payments fraud, 2017 AFP Payments Fraud and Control Survey, I encourage you to read the survey. It's fascinating. You want to get some attention to payments risk mitigation. Just give your CFO the executive summary. So what we see here is that these fraudsters do not discriminate based on your company size. So again, it doesn't matter if you're small, large, mid-market. These folks know AP is often overworked, so we need to put practices in place to mitigate fraud. So look at that. 74% of all companies attempted or experienced actual payments fraud in 2016. When I was a Treasury practitioner, saw it firsthand. There are a few things more frightening in your Treasury career than to get an exception item from your positive pay file and look at an image and see your name on a check that has your exact signature for $50,000 and a check that you've never signed. So that will definitely wake you up. So we need to pay attention. And what about the types of the fraud based on the type of payments? Well, what you'll see, which is also alarming, which should help motivate you to not write checks anymore. Look at that, 75%, by far the highest. The next highest fraud by payment type is wires. It makes sense. We're seeing these BEC scams, but still, look at that. Look at the difference there. It's almost 30% difference. So you got to look at yourself in the mirror. Why are you writing checks? It costs a lot. There's a lot of risk exposures. You're not getting the benefits of the float anymore. So to me, it just doesn't make sense unless it's part of your policy, your union contract. Other than that, we need to stop writing checks. So again, payments fraud is still rampant. So let's take a look at some of the pain points that we often experience. So I mentioned earlier, we need to look at supplier management pain points. So we need to look at our suppliers. How are we impacting our suppliers, negatively impacting our suppliers, negatively impacting the communication with our suppliers, and what are the impacts on our company? So a lot of times AP processes are absolutely an inherent barrier to effective supplier relationship management. We can't afford to have these barriers in place in today's world. So what are some of the pain points? Lack of visibility. You can't see and the suppliers can't see what they owe. There's misalignment there. There's untimely communication with your suppliers. What's due, when it's due, a payment's coming, why it's coming, when it's going. Terms. A lot of systems have collaboration barriers. There's relationship constraints. And then at the end of the day, what's very common still is that you are forced to be reactive instead of proactive. So if you have the right visibility, the right systems, you can see issues before they become issues, right? Head these off at the pass. We need strong supplier relationships. So that starts from the effectiveness on your onboarding, the communication, you're making payments, when they're paid, how they're paid. You need to be a strategic partner to your suppliers, and there's many ways to do that. And especially in finance, we need to figure out how to get our CFO involved with our suppliers. throughout the relationship cycle, not just if there's some sort of issue. And you never know you're going to need that supplier to speed up a shipment or something. The last thing you want to do is have supplier management issues, and the last thing anyone in accounts payable wants to do is to be pointed at. The reason that we're having an issue is because of our accounts payable. Imagine this, the CFO is not going to be happy with that, folks. So let's go into some more accounts payable pain points. We mentioned these a little earlier. Discounts lost. Huge cost to your company if you're not taking advantage of discounts, if you're not negotiating discounts. We talked about this. Ineffective working capital management. We can be costly payments methods. Again, we'll talk about this a little later. How much does it cost you to write a check? What about an ACH? What about a credit card program? What about under credit cards, purchase cards, T&E card? And then we can have cumbersome controls in that approval process. Are all these things done manually? Are things getting stuck, bottlenecked in our AP process that are costing us to lose those discounts? So all of these are some pain points, and this helps us understand the business case for AP automation, just to look at what's the value in removing these pain points. And the other part of the value proposition I really didn't mention is just the productivity increases to those involved in the AP automation process if they're not keying in invoices, if they're not chasing down errors, if they're not on the phone with their suppliers all the time, just trying to get on the same page. So let's take a look at some costs here. So I love to look at survey data. Ardent Partners has some great research. So this slide is data from Ardent Partners looking at the impact of AP automation. So let's just take a look at some of the costs here. So if you haven't done this, you should do this. You should go on use.com and do this as well. You need to take a look at the cost, at the benefits of AP automation. You need to be able to also determine how much it costs you to pay a single invoice. Now I've seen this number as high as 30%, $15, $16 to pay a single invoice. I think that's kind of in the middle. So it can cost you as much as $30, and it can be even more. In certain industries, like the airline industry, is a big dollar invoice. That can be hundreds of dollars. So just think about this. So you're paying a single invoice. Let's say you're paying $20. What if we get that cost down to $6, $5, $15 an invoice? How many invoices do you cut every month, or how many invoices do you process every month? So and then the other part of that is when you look at this, where does that savings go? Right to the bottom line. So if you're putting a couple $100,000 every year to the bottom line, the CFO is going to love accounts payable. They're going to wear a shirt, say, I heart accounts payable. And you look at the cost, right? It costs $9.34 to cut a check. We talked about this. So how much does an ACH cost today? $1 or less. That's $8 cost savings. So this visibility into the accounts payable process unlocks that value. So now we talked about taking discounts. It takes you $28.5 from day's invoice receipt to pay. Well, what if you're on 110 net 30? No, are you going to be able to take a discount? Absolutely not. We have to get that down to 10. So some more color on there. The other parts of inefficiencies, the time your staff spends handling supplier calls. Look at this, average time spent per day. 41% of folks spend time every day. Frequency of late payments, 31%. Duplicate or mistaken payments, 4%. So look at these costs. So again, what does it look like when we improve in these areas? We're going from $15, maybe $6. We're going from $9.34 for each check. We can change that to an ACH $1. We can take those discounts. We can miss those late payments. Huge relationship implications. And then we need to get our staff off the phone handling supplier calls, and we'll talk about the cost to your company in terms of that value. More costs of processing an invoice. Why am I going so far in the weeds here, folks? You need to make the business case. So you need to make that business case as compelling as possible. Again, I've got that metal detector on. Beep, 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 beep. So all these costs here, cost of processing invoice, you can remove the majority of these or mitigate these through AP automation. So what are some of the other costs? Matching or three-way matching of an open PO. So what are the costs? Manual. So you have manual PO matching. That causes problems. Creating and posting a journal entry. Are you doing that manually? How do you process exception items? That's a component of processing a cost. Approval of an open accounts payable item for payment. That impacts your cost of processing an invoice. Is it on-site or mobile? You want to make it mobile. Is it manual or automated? You want it to be automated. If not, that manual piece is going to pump up that cost of processing an invoice. It's just the scheduling of an open AP item for payment. Again, manual or automated. Approval or accounts payable. Again, is that manual, automated? You have automated journal entry and workflow. So, and then just clearing items off of your general ledger. All these things look at that cost of processing invoice. So again, you need to understand the cost of processing an invoice at your company. See where you're at, benchmark that, take a look at what AP automation can do to mitigate the cost of the invoice, but that's only one piece of our ROI. What about improving supplier relationships? What about improving working capital optimization? What about improving the productivity of our accounting and finance team? So let's just take a look. So this one really, love this slide, really hits home to me. So if you look at just resolving AP processing issues, and I'm not saying they're all going to go away if you do AP automation, but a huge, huge amount are. So if you look at a report from Pastry Advisors, there's a hyperlink there. It's a great piece of research, 2016 invoice workflow automation. So let's just put this in terms of annual costs per employee. So if you look at that, this almost blows my mind. 4 to 8 hours a week, 35% of companies are spending that just resolving AP processing issues. That to me is incredible. So we have to be able to do better. So if we look at that in terms of an employee, look at that hours spent, 9 to 20 hours a week. Look at that annual cost per employee, up to $27,000. The way I like to look at this is if I can remove the time spent on the phone. Let's say I've got 20 people working in this area. So think about the math here real quick. So each week I'm possibly going to save myself 40 hours of time. What is that? That's a full-time employee, and you don't have to go to HR. What could you do in accounts payable if you had another full-time employee? That is incredibly compelling in and of itself. So, all right, we talked about all these headaches. So we're like, man, this guy is bringing me down here. But let's talk about how to cure some of those headaches. So let's talk about some of the keys to AP automation. You want to look for end-to-end, supports the entire invoice process. So how does that mitigate our headaches? Well, what I talk about, you want to look at people, processes, and systems. We want to minimize the number of people involved, number of processes, number of systems. AP automation does all these things end-to-end. You want to support the entire process. You want to remove the manual pieces. You want to give people mobile access. So you want to keep that flow going. That's going to mitigate our cost of processing that invoice. Again, along the same lines, automated. We don't want to be keying in data. We don't want to have user interaction. You need to have a seamless system. You want it to integrate with your existing ERP system. That's about data integrability. You want your system to be fast. You want it to be quick and easy to implement, but it needs to be powerful as well. And you need to have easy to train people up. It needs to be intuitive, simple user interface experience. Obviously, it needs to be secure. And this is probably the most important one to me, collaborative. Improve relationships with vendors and your teamwork inside your company across departments. Key. So I like this slide. I want to spend too much time on it, but this is a slide you might want to print out. So if you're trying to look at all the places, where this cost is coming from, and if you want to get someone's attention on how complicated the AP process actually is, this is a great slide. So we look at what that automation looks like and what your process might not look like, right? So on the front side, we might not be scanning or capturing anything. We might have those manual invoices coming in. There's smart doc recognition. What does that mean? OCR, automatically capturing data, putting it into journal entries, removing that process, removing that manual keying. You want automated workflows. You want mobile approval. What happens a lot of times if someone's traveling on the road, these AP items get stuck. What does that mean? We can't take our discounts. We're making our suppliers mad. No. We talked about POs, PO matching, business process management. So payments, we want to automate that. So we're going to look at supplier access. Another point on automation, we want to look at the workflows, but also the workflow of the exception items. So we want to automate in all these areas possible. I'm a risk person myself. You can put risk controls in place. It actually decreases the risk. So you can still have your separation of duties. Everything that you have doing manually, you can do that automated. So it's possible to do that. It actually improves. So don't use that as an excuse. Another slide I love, a different way to look at it for you visual folks out there. This is a slide I would print out. So this is what it looks like. This is best in class, and you can achieve this no matter what your company size. So we're coming in, we're capturing, scan, email, invoice. You want e-invoices. You can actually scan an invoice of some things with their iPhone. So you want to identify, recognize, boom, you're going to get that in your system. Workflow to code, post GL account, approve, pay, export. Beautiful. This is it, folks. Capture, enter, approve, pay, export. We can do this in automation. Take a look at your company, get in the weeds, see how many people are involved in manual processes and doing this. You'll be blown away, some of you, I guarantee it. So let's dig a little deeper on API automation. What are some of the key functionalities you want to look for? Again, a different way to look at the last slide. You want document capture. So do you have multi-capture, scan, email, mobile, e-invoicing? Again, OCR technology. Some of the leading providers out there are actually getting into artificial intelligence. So many aren't there yet, but you need to look at that. If you use OCR, you need someone to explain to you how good that is. Some technologies are better than others. Document capture. You want all documents handled in a homogeneous process. You want automatic recognition. Again, talked about this. So, and if you're looking at automatic recognition, OCR, these are the things that you want. PO matching, automated GL coding, duplicate invoice detection. Again, you want to look at intelligent document recognition, and then you want full text indexing. Process workflow. You want dynamic decisional workflow. You want mobile approval. You want the ability to do email notifications. You want to be able to do dispute management online. Maybe it's possible for you to look at something in real time with your suppliers and get online and be on the phone and say, okay, I'm looking at this, do a go-to meeting, boom, get that stuff taken care of. And of course, you want to have that audit trail. You want to have search and reporting in your AP, Google-like search function, and then you want to have that seamless ERP integration. All these things are things you should look for, things that are possible, and things that make sense from a cost basis. So I want to talk just briefly about the automation implementation. So we have this great tool. That's great. We need to learn how to implement it, and we need to make sure that we are getting the most out of our spend and really leveraging all the functionality we have. So the real point of this slide is if I were to ask you, if you weren't familiar with cloud-based AP automation solutions, I would ask you, how long is it going to take me to implement AP automation? You'll probably say 6 months, a year. So, and these are true case studies. Timelines can range from as low as a few hours, and then of course it might be 6 months, but that 6 months is probably going to be an on-premise system. So what you want to look for, again, in most cases, you should be able to get up and running between the most on the high side, 60 days or less. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's hours, and so these are just some of the pieces that we want to look at. Now, a point there is when you need to start the clock. You can't start the clock, project preparation. It's got to start the clock when you're ready to go. So you have to have your ducks in a row. So a key piece of this is project preparation. Have your GL in order, chart of accounts, know your inherent barriers. You need to be ready to go. So your team needs to be ready to go. You need to have that buy-in. So before we start that clock, we need to be ready to go. So just some automation transition best practices. You need to audit and assess your pain points. Again, you want to point out your inherent barriers. So you want to make sure you get in the weeds, right? You need to map your current document flow, invoices, PO processes. Again, when I say people and technology, you need to understand where you are today, what works and what doesn't, and then how is automation going to take away those headaches. You need to define your processing requirements and your key roles, the types of documents handled, assess the number of documents, the AP automation project. So you need to have someone leading the charge internally that's going to work in collaboration with your AP solution provider. That person needs to own the project, run the point, establish that accountability, take ownership of that execution, and then you need to define key roles and responsibilities for the approval workflows. You want to standardize your AP process. Again, I'll let you read through the slides. You want to remove redundancies, define a validation workflow, and store your documents in one place. And you want to align your automation processes with your business goals. Again, you need to be ready for change. This is common in accounts payable. I'm sorry. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've seen it. We've always been doing it that way. This is what we need to remove. We need to remove that from the culture of accounts payable. So we need to set measurable goals, really tell these people what they're doing, how it's currently it's actually hurting our company, costing us money, costing us productivity. It's actually putting their jobs in jeopardy. So, and for using AP, what do I want to look at? To look at where I'm at, where I need to go for AP. How good am I at AP? How do I benchmark myself? How do I want to be at the top of the class? You want to look at single invoice processing costs. Again, we need to look at this. Where are we at? So we need to determine our costs. What's in that cost? What areas can we impact? How can we do it? Single invoice processing time. Again, we need to be able to get ourselves down to take discounts. So 10 days or less is going to be ideal. You might want to look at daily number of invoices processed. And again, this number may just go out of the park, especially the more automated your process is. And then documents in dispute per vendor. That would be fantastic. We need to get that down. Again, we need to minimize the time our folks are spending on the phone with people. And a lot of these issues are due to lack of visibility. So some companies actually give visibility to their suppliers and to their network. So what are the strategic outcomes of AP automation and ROI? So let's start to put a fine point on this. What's the business case for your company? Again, it depends on your company, what components are going to be most valuable to you. But I've tried to give you a broad spectrum of all the different buckets where you can realize lower cost, increased working capital optimization, and supplier relationships and productivity. So you need to be able to lay these out, again, to your constituency, right? Is it in your CFO and those who are going to be involved in implementing and executing your project. So what are some of the strategic outcomes? We can eliminate payments of duplicate invoices. This, to me, blows me away. I've seen people paying duplicate invoices as high as 3 to 4%. You need to be able to look into that. What does it do? Eliminate suboptimal payment methods. Again, so we can look at, so we need to be versed on if we're using checks, why? If, okay, we're not in checks, okay, I want to use an ACH, I want to use a wire's expensive, but I might want to use it for some reason. Card payments, what kind of card payments do I want? That visibility eliminates suboptimal payment methods, and then that automation facilitates that workflow and allows us to make batch ACH payments and really unlock the value of owning the portfolio of our payment methods. Again, improves supplier relationships, allows for discounts to be captured, removes errors caused by manual input, mitigates payment fraud exposures, improves our risk management, creates transparency and visibility and a culture of continuous improvement. And to me, very important, it's often missed, allows more employee focus on strategic activities. Print the slide out. This is key as you're building your business case. This really lays the foundation for the business case. And when you lay this business case out, you have to be able to communicate effectively, but it's really hard to argue with the business case. So let's just take a look at best practices. And again, I talked about this a little earlier. Let's put some research behind this. Average time to process an invoice, 45 days, right? What about innovators? Okay, 5 days. Average cost per invoice combination, right? What's the average processing cost? Again, look at how that goes down by 12. Percentage of AP achieving discounts. Again, you want that discount. So those will help you put some numbers, help you benchmark yourself. So let's say, I did this. It takes me, 30 days. Ooh, you're almost a novice. I know you guys are better than that. Let's get you guys to be mainstream. Let's get you guys to be an innovator. Let's get you under 10 days. You can do it with the solutions out there. Some of the savings impact, some more survey data, which helps you build that business case. Ardent partners, again, let's say all-in costs before automation, companies, $15. After automation, $3.20. What does that look like? AP monthly savings, $6,000. What's the annual cost of just that? processing 500 invoices a month, $75,000. Think about that. Your CFO, how's he going to love you? Every month, I'm adding $75,000 to the bottom line, and that's just 500 invoices a month. Scale that up. What if you're at 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 invoices a month? Now you're talking millions of dollars. AP will suddenly be the favorite department of your CFO. I mentioned some of these tools. These are fantastic. If you take an action from listening to this webinar, I hope you click on the hyperlink and do this estimated cost savings. It's amazing. Look at your annual savings. Again, you need to dig in deeper, but it's easy. The business case is right there. And then when you look at the number of invoices per month, are you going to grow? Let's put that number up. Let's pull that number back. But to me, just looking at this, the savings, right, $138,000, again, that goes right to the bottom line. So it's tremendously compelling. Give this link to your CFO, let them play around. I mean, this in and of itself can make the business case for you. So in terms of estimating your cost savings, just some more, dive a little deeper here. How many hours does your AP spend each week? We talked about this. Fixing, reworking, dealing with exceptions. You're going to have to interview your AP team. You're going to have to maybe sit next to them, talk to them, tell them that you want to know, and they'll love to tell you about it, believe me. And then you can tell them, we're going to take this away from your desk. They will love you. They'll buy you cookies, right? So here's an example. You have 20 people processing invoices. They spend 4 hours a week dealing with exceptions. You reduce exceptions by 50%. You get a new full-time employee. Again, imagine what you can do strategically with that employee. You want to look at efficiency. We talked about this. So we talked about how much time is saved by each person impacted by AP automation. Savings equal to sum of the hours saved by hourly rate for each employee impacted. Again, if you haven't been in the weeds, you'll be amazed how many people are involved in the AP automation process. Save someone an hour a week, 2 hours a week, that number gets compelling really quickly. Strategic value, what's it worth to have each employee impacted on one or more strategic processes? Again, takes a little bit of massaging, but you can get that factor. You can make it conservative. Number of hours saved times the value factor for each employee impacted. So what's the value? It's most easy when someone is doing something manual. So what else can I have them working on? I can have them work on taking discounts, negotiating contracts, huge number. And then you can look at your discount efficiency. Again, the opportunity cost of capital for not taking your discounts available, negotiating better discounts. All these make up your business case. So let's talk about that business case. I love this. 10 steps to an effective business case. Establish the key pain points your company is facing. I love my little pictures here. What are we looking at? Discounts lost, too many payments being made the wrong way, manual keying of invoices, ineffective working capital management, flying blind in terms of our supplier relationships. Accurately define the lay of the land relative to the issues that need to be addressed. I like to keep it simple. So does everyone that hears your business case. People, process, technology. You need to offer multiple solutions to address that you show you've done your homework. You don't want to have to hear appearance of vendor bias. You need to do a cost-benefit analysis that's easily defensible on assumptions, accurate numbers, and includes potential impacts on the bottom line. I've showed you how this is easy in our case. What is that invoice processing cost? You can get at that. Look at the people involved. How much time do they spend? Put a number on that. And then making them more efficient, making that process more efficient. Put hard dollar cost savings on that. Again, we got to look at time savings, productivity impacts, and the value of more time spent on activities. Okay, you need to have an executive summary that concisely delivers the urgency in addressing specific issues, how it will be done, and what the benefits will be realized in addition to the cost of inaction. That creates a sense of urgency. This is going to continue to cost us $100,000 a month until we get this taken care of. Also, in putting your business case together, you guys know who's the person that's going to be the biggest opponent in making this automation project come to fruition. Engage those people. Figure out what you can do to get them on board. Involve them in your business case. Show them how this is going to make their lives easier. Show them how this is going to impact their careers. Believe me, these folks, when you get them on board, they will be your biggest advocates. You need to know your constituency, as I talked about earlier, who needs to approve the resource allocation, who's going to be involved in your project, whose life are you going to change in accounts payable and treasury, accounts receivable. We need to get those people engaged. In terms of the communication of the business case, a lot of great projects are lost here. You need to present with confidence and passion. Like me, right? You can tell just from a webinar, I have passion, confidence. It makes a big deal. You need to clearly define the project roles, responsibilities, and establish accountability with each stakeholder at the meeting. When you're presenting, have your stakeholders in the room. Look them in the eye. Have them nod their head. We're going to do this, right, John? John's going to shake his head. CFO sees that. Beautiful. Clearly define how the projects fit together and each role they play in successful execution and going forward. It's not just about implementation. It's about execution going forward. And how do we create that culture of continuous improvement? Maybe almost the most important piece here, define success, measure it, and communicate it to the CFO and to all your stakeholders. Metrics, benchmarks, establish and maintain that accountability. So let's take a look back here at our learning objectives. Again, this was my promise to you at the start of the webinar. Can you calculate the potential cost savings of AP automation for your company? I think we've hit this topic at a very deep level. And so you can do this. There's several components. Again, you want to look at cost of processing an invoice. How can we do better there? In terms of improving working capital management, how do we improve that cash forecast there? What's the value of being able to take and negotiate better discounts? What about improving the strategic focus of our folks? All these areas. And then just on invoice processing costs, the cost savings. I showed you a cost savings calculator on use.com. You need to take a look at that tool. I want you to be able to define the benefits of improved productivity. Again, I think we've hit that topic in a pretty deep manner. You need to look at all the people and systems involved, and you'll be able to see how much time they're spending on manual processes, in disputes, waiting for approvals. This is very compelling. Again, we get that metal detector out. It's going to be beeping all over the place. And then we told you how to construct and communicate an effective business case for AP automation at your company. Talked about some additional resources. I would suggest you look at all these resources. AFP, Payments Fraud and Control Survey, the Invoice Workflow Automation Report. Another great resource we didn't get into too much, automating end accounts payable for the mid-market, the Uberization of AP. And here it is for AP. You need to disrupt or you're going to get disrupted. And then, of course, the Use website has a lot of great additional resources. So in closing, I just want to once again thank our sponsor, Use, and their strong commitment to thought leadership in making this webinar possible. And I want to thank you, the audience, for your valuable time. Thank you very much. Make the rest of your day great, everyone.